Hey, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to another episode of Gardening Up. So I just want to do a quick little video. The difference between, if you're a beginning grower, if you've already been growing for a long time, and maybe you don't know this because you grow one way. But if you're a beginning grower, you may be looking into and obviously it depends on what levels of space that you have. Like I have a pretty large yard. Let me take a look here. I got a very large backyard. And I even got front side yards. But I don't know by the video if you're gonna be able to see how much yard I actually do have. But then I have a small space where I do that in my lasagna raised bed, lasagna style raised bed, in which, right now I've got almost 40 plants in there in a 6x20. And the point of it is, if you're in an apartment, let me turn around here. If you're in an apartment, you're not gonna have room to plant something in the ground, technically. And I've seen different videos in different places where people in neighborhoods, they're monopolizing on their areas. If the codes of wherever they're at will allow them to, neighbors don't complain, things like that. But if you're in an apartment, of course, you're pretty much you don't have too many options. You're going to be growing from a pot. Now, this year was my first year for growing in pots. I've always grown in the garden, in the ground, is because that's, the way I was taught, what I was raised around. We just never really grew vegetables from a pot. But a year, was it 2 years ago? I guess it'd be 2 years ago now. I had grew quite a bit of tomatoes, and they all ended up getting sick on me. Brought in a ton of insects. Like I was saying in a video before, I'm learning, I believe that tomatoes, even though people like them and they grow them a lot, are a magnet for insects and disease, especially if you live in a really hot, humid climate. And anyway, it contaminated this garden pretty heavy. Everything got sick, even my herbs and everything that was in the garden with those tomatoes. It made everything sick. Every vegetable in there, it didn't matter what it was. And it didn't eat. And even though the nightshade family of tomato and pepper are the same, it got on my herbs. And some things are resilient, and the same diseases won't affect every plant. But in this case, it did. I think it was blight, some kind of blight. It just spread over everything. And that stuff is very contagious. You have to be very careful with that. Anyway, so I just ended up going to pots. And so the reason for making this video was, I know if you are in an apartment, you don't have much room. And your options are, hey, we're going to have to grow a pot. I will say this to you, though. I have to turn this camera around. I'll say this to you, though. Like I've heard and inspired from when I was looking into, wanting to grow, wanting to start producing some self-sufficiency in my life instead of relying on a grocery store, trying to be more healthy by eating organic vegetables and things like that, and just having fun with it. Someone's like, well, somebody's asking, what do I need to do? Or main thing is you get obviously you want to educate yourself. You want to do the research. Soil is the heartbeat of plants. If you don't have a good soil, you're not going to get much farther. But there are a lot of dynamics outside of the soil that have to all come together also. But soil is the heart of the plant. And it is what is most important for you to learn about, number one. But what they said to me, if you're wanting to do it, just go for it. Even if it is one plant, just go for it. That's what I did. I just stepped out, got me some seeds, and planted some in the ground. I made the lasagna bed, and then I put seeds in the ground. I have had, personally, I've had more success putting seeds directly in the soil outside than getting, starting seedlings inside with lights and all that stuff, because I don't know. I've had a better success rate growing them outside, and they're used to outside. But you just have to make sure you have your seeds in the ground early enough, because if you start seeds late, they come up and the sun's already too hot on them, it will definitely fry them, even though they're outside and started outside. It'll kill them off because they need to come up in the springtime. But anyway, so with that all said, most of my grow, because of my budget, was done in 3.5. I think these are 3-gallon pots, and I do have some 5s. But the difference is, like this Carolina Reaper right here, which never mind the way they look. This has been the hardcore of the summer. The heat really got to them. A lot of people really got their butts kicked and handed to them. But I still had pods continue to produce, but it definitely slowed during the real hot times. But this one in the 3-gallon pot only produced probably 100 pods total. When I jump up to this 5-gallon pot on a 7-pot Primo Yellow, I probably got 200 pods so far off, and they're still producing. If you're going to grow in pots, you need there to be a legitimate amount of soil, and ideally you want 5 gallons and up. If you can't afford it and you want to grow, you're going to get a harvest. You're going to be able to produce a plant that's going to produce peppers or whatever you're growing. It is going to, but it's going to be more minimal because of the size of the dirt, the base of dirt, and the root structure. It's not going to be able to go as deep as in bigger pots. And then I got this really large ceramic pot the neighbor gave to me, and this plant I put in really, really late, and we'll see how this one does. I'm gonna probably end up winterizing this one. This is a Carolina Reaper as well. It's very tall. I'm probably going to cut it down. But and these are like 7-gallon pots here, and this jalapeno. And so you're going to produce more. Common sense, if you didn't, maybe it's not common sense if somebody doesn't know because they just don't know. But the bigger amounts of soil you have, the more it's going to produce your plant and your fruit. And so if you look at these compared to these, about a foot, 12 inches to 18 inches, maybe a 2 foot at the maximum on the height of my, even in the 5-7 gallon pots, and they can grow bigger than that. Don't get me wrong, they're not limited to that. But when you go and compare them to what's in the ground over here and the fullerness, I mean, you're talking about 5-foot plants, bushy, really big, 3 foot wide. Pods everywhere. Look at the pods on this one here. I mean, they're just everywhere. I mean, it's completely full. I mean, you look down in here and there's pods all over the place in these plants. And so the benefits of being in the ground outweighs, I think, the ones in the pots. The things that are beneficial for your pots though are, you can move in your pots out of weather. You can move them into the shade, but they also dry out faster. The nutrients flush through them faster, so you have to feed them and water them more. So there's your pros and cons. But overall, if I was going to choose what to do, you want to be in the ground. I would do both, but to be in the ground if you're going to produce bigger, fuller, and more fruit. Just because the roots don't have as far to grow. Unless you're putting them in, you're putting them in 20-gallon pots, then you got plenty. And your pots would, but who's, moving around 20-gallon pot of dirt, good luck. That's a lot of money to have to buy soils, because it does get expensive buying soils and pots and amendments if you already have an established soil. If you live in a good climate or a good area where you have good soil in topsoil where you live, then you're blessed. Because in Florida I have sand, I have zero. I have to build the soil here, or have a soil brought in, or buy the soil out of a bag. And so anyway, I was just going to share a little bit about the benefits of, and the size differences between those in pots and those in the ground. And you're definitely going to get more bang for your buck putting them in the ground versus a pot. But there are some benefits to having them in the pots. And one thing you can always do, even if you have them in the ground, if you want to overwinterize a plant, you can always pull them up no matter where they're at. You pull them up out of a pot, wash off the stem roots, transplant them so you don't bring bugs inside out of your soils. You can pull them out of the ground and put them in and transplant them, bring them in. You know, obviously you're going to cut them down and make, you know, bring the plant to a place of dormant inside your house until the following year. When it comes to that, overwinterizing, I would say overwinterizing is a game changer when it comes to growing. You get such a huge head start when you've already got a plant that's already established in its roots and it's already got a nice thick stem. Once it gets in the right climate and temperature, it's just gonna thrive and it's gonna be awesome. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching another video of Gardening Up. Until next time, appreciate you guys, love you guys.